Greetings, I'm your host, Dr. Wolfula, and I got a special treat for you. A commentary of a Halloween classic called, Halloween. Okay, not a very creative title, but it's direct. All the best movies have simple titles, like Citizen Kane. His name was Kane, and he was a citizen. That's all you really need to know. But anyway, I'm going to be doing a commentary on this beloved horror film. If you don't know what a commentary is, well, you're stupid. But basically, a commentary is me talking over the movie and trying to be interesting and funny. I can't really promise that I will be interesting or funny, but I'll try my best. We're gonna get started soon. We're gonna sync this up. Well, I think I'm gonna count down from 3 to 1, and I'm gonna say go. So when you hear me say go, you press the play button on your fucking whatever, on your remote, on your fucking... I don't know how you're gonna be watching this, okay? I'm gonna be... by the way, I'm not watching, like, the TV version or anything. I'm watching the original cut of Halloween. So, you're gonna want to have a DVD of it, or a digital copy, or even, like, a VHS. Just whatever. Just make sure you can sync it up. And make sure you can just get it right there. Preferably, it should be, like, digital or DVD or Blu-ray or whatever. Just make sure you got it and it's legal. Or you could just listen to this without the movie, but I don't know how great that would be. Maybe you just want some background noise. I don't know, but we're gonna count down from 3 to 1, and I'm gonna say go. And then we're not gonna turn back. We're gonna keep going. So, let's get started. 3, 2, 1, go! Okay, press the play button. And now you should be hearing John Carpenter's immortal score for Halloween. This score is what sold financiers or whatever into at least releasing this movie. I mean, I'm pretty sure the movie was already made, but this is what sold distributors on releasing this fucking movie. And my video player is kind of glitching out. But whatever, it doesn't matter. And, you know, the great thing about this score is that you kind of need to have this score. Because without this score... Halloween, I mean, it's kind of a dull movie. There's a lot of slow, methodical pacing, and it's quiet, so you need this haunting score to accompany it, because then it's just sort of silence. That's the great thing about music. It really helps shit, because otherwise it's awkward. But yeah, this movie could work really well as a silent film with just the score, because... honestly, there's not a whole lot of important dialogue. I mean, that's the thing about silent movies, is that they did have dialogue, but it was very brief, to the point, and it wasn't a whole lot. Like, a lot of silent films just work on just, like, seeing what's going on. So when, like, for example, there's not a whole lot of important dialogues. So, for example, you have that scene where the girls are sort of walking along down the street, talking to each other. Honestly, you don't need to hear what they're saying. It's not fucking important. You can just see them, and if you've ever been around teenagers, you get an idea of what they're talking about. So it could work as a silent film. I don't suggest you watch it as a silent film, but it could work. And honestly, the only real important dialogue is said by Dr. Loomis a few times. Otherwise, you know, just establishing who Michael is. Because, yeah, there's not a whole lot of important dialogue. It's just seeing stuff happen. And that's pretty fucking good, how they were able to really just rely on just the visuals and, of course, the music. I'm going to get a drink of water. I don't know if... oh, man, that's a really good fucking... just to establish that Halloween has happened. Just you hear these kids sort of chanting and stuff. That really sets the tone. But this scene is really... I mean, okay, there's the obvious thing where it's just this first-person view. It's very clever. But really, when you get down to it, this was a low-budget film. And they have this opening scene, and they want to keep the killer, like the person just watching everything happening. They want to make sure that you don't see this character. They want to make it a surprise until the end of this sequence or scene or whatever the hell you want to call it. so their solution for that is making the whole scene first person. That's really fucking cool how they were just like, we're gonna do this really difficult thing just so we can have this one shocking moment. And the thing about it is that the shocking moment is probably gonna be ruined for a lot of people, because honestly, if you're over, I'd say if you're if you're under the age of 40, you probably saw the shocking moment coming. You know ahead of time who this killer is, who this silent watcher is. But back when you saw this in theaters, back in the 70s, you'd probably be like, oh my god, that's the killer? And it's so fucking cool how they were basically so willing to do this really difficult scene just to surprise people. And I'm sure, like, because people don't really talk about the surprising things so much as just this scene. I'm sure it was an accident that the first person thing ended up being such a big deal to people, because really the big deal is the surprise. The first person thing is just to hide the surprise, but because people see the surprise coming now, the first person thing is the main attraction to this part of the movie. Man, I'm doing a lot better at the commentary. I did this the first time and I just screwed it up. I just didn't have anything to talk about, but that's a really interesting thing to talk about. Oh my god. I'm such a genius. In the novel, they actually have sex, but I don't think they could have had sex in the span of time. And, oh my god, the novel is super descriptive of their sex scene. Like, it's just too much information. You don't need to tell me all that. Oh my god. It's kind of gross. Yeah. You know, I don't need to hear... if I recall correctly, they described that dude's penis going into her vagina. You know, I don't need that information. But, thanks. But the novel's pretty good. If you're a Halloween fan, huge Halloween fan... I said Halloween fam. Yeah, but anyway, if you're a huge Halloween fan, read that book, because, you know, it's a different perspective on Michael. It sort of clashes with the whole Michael doesn't have much of a backstory kind of thing. But the backstory that it introduces is great. And honestly, to me, if you're gonna remake Halloween again for some reason, do a version that was in that book, because there's some interesting stuff. And if you're gonna tell more of a backstory to Michael, tell the one in that book. But anyway, yeah, you kind of know who the killer is now, because they were talking. I think Judith mentions a killer named, like, mentions her brother Michael. But then again, you don't really know who Michael is exactly. You're sort of like, okay, so the killer is someone she mentioned earlier, but who could this mysterious killer be? I'm gonna get some water. Oh my god, it's really well fucking staged. And yeah, there's a lot of cheating, there's a lot of cutting. Of course, it's not all one real shot, but it's pretty damn close. And there you go, there's your surprising, shocking moment. And I'm sure it doesn't blow your mind now, because honestly, going into this movie, I knew ahead of time what was going on. But back when this movie came out in theaters, and maybe early on in its lifespan, you didn't see this coming. And you were like, holy shit! A child killed this girl. And you know, the remake kind of ruined this whole opening sequence by making Michael... He doesn't just kill his sister. He kills, like... What was it? Like 3 other people. So it's like 4 people. It's like already he's a kid going on a massacre. But whatever. I don't want to talk about the remake. I'm sorry. Because a lot of people like the remake. And there's nothing wrong with liking the remake. I just didn't like it. You know, that's it. But I'm talking about this movie. And that's all you get. That's all the backstory you get. You know that Michael is a killer all the way back from childhood. And he's going to be our main antagonist. And we got our kind of hero. Like, he kind of is the hero. Dr. Loomis. But, yeah, well, Laurie is the ultimate. Well, then again, he saves the day at the end. Spoilers, he saves the day. But, I don't know. So there's 2 heroes, or whatever. There's a protagonist, and there's a hero. I don't know the hero's journey. I don't know exactly. I probably should know this. all the stuff like all the protagonist, deuteragonist, all that other shit, but I don't know. Honestly, to me, Donald Pleasance is Dr. Loomis. I know he did a whole... Oh man, phlegm. Oh, that's not a good sound. But anyway, I know he did a whole lot of other stuff, but to me, Donald Pleasance is Dr. Loomis. I know he did James Bond movies, but I don't know that much about James Bond. Not really a fan of that series. I don't hate that series or anything. It's just, it never appealed to me. But whatever. I don't know him as Blofeld. I know him as this character. And maybe mainstream audiences know him better as that James Bond villain, but to horror fans, he is Dr. Loomis. And he was also in a bunch of other John Carpenter movies. He was the president in Escape from L.A., which, it's kind of a thankless role. He just sort of sat around for most of the movie, but yeah, he wasn't super great in that movie. He didn't really get to show off his skills as an actor in that movie, but, you know, he was easy to hate at least. Well, in this movie, it's also kind of weird watching this movie because I'm so used to basically Dr. Loomis being a total fucking maniac. And he's kind of normal in this movie. He's just sort of concerned. And yeah, he has this one crazy moment when Michael escapes. But, you know, it's reasonable because he's been spending his whole life trying to make sure that, a decent chunk of his life, trying to make sure this guy doesn't get out. And then the guy gets out, and he's pretty fucking pissed, and he goes he gets crazy. But in this movie, for the most part, he takes things pretty damn well, for the most part. But later in the series, he gets really fucking crazy. I'm gonna get some more water. Just enjoy this music while I take a sip. Something to note, there's a whole bunch of Michael Myers in this movie. There's one key player as Michael Myers, which is Nick Castle, who went on to direct, like, fucking Last Starfighter and a bunch of other stuff. He was a friend of John Carpenter's, and I think he just basically did it because, like, you know, just as a favor. And he's great because, well, not only did he set in stone Michael's fucking, just his whole body language and all that, he also he just looks like a normal guy. He's not a stunt guy. He's just this normal fucking dude. And this movie really sells the normal guy thing. Like, later on, they fuck it up. But, for the most part, he's just a normal dude in this movie. But he's a normal dude who's unstoppable, and he's like a fucking... He's beyond reason. But yeah, Michael got out. And, oh yeah, that nurse, like, I'm sure she was... Honestly, that nurse only exists in this series to give Dr. Loomis someone to talk about. And then she's expanded in H2O. But 1 and 2, she's just there for Dr. Loomis to establish something. And then later on, she appears to establish something to Dr. Loomis. And that's pretty much all she functions as in 1 and 2. But in H2O, they give her a little more to do, but still, still not that much. Oh man, what a haunting score this movie has. Like, it really, like, they need to get the fucking music right in the next movie. They need to get a lot of things right that this movie did well. You know, get a checklist. Fucking music is one of those things. Honestly, John Carpenter doesn't seem likely for any directing in the future. Of course, I'm sure he's turned his back. Well, he hasn't turned his back on directing. He just wants a lot of money for directing because he doesn't want to direct something for like just $1 million and not be able to do the stuff he wants to do. That's the thing. People want to pay him so little money because he has directed Halloween, which was really cheap, but he's like, I don't want to direct cheap movies. I want to direct big movies. And honestly, I think the reason why his later movies sucked was because he was way too ambitious on the budgets he had. Then again, Escape from LA had a pretty high budget, but whatever. I don't know what I wanted to talk about. Oh, well, Jamie Lee Curtis has entered the scene, or the movie, or whatever, along with Tommy Doyle. I don't know the kid's name. And Jamie Lee Curtis, of course, played nobody before this movie. I don't know what I was going to talk about before, but her mom was Janet Leigh, and I guess they were just like, wouldn't it be cute if we hired Janet Leigh's daughter for some reason? Because Halloween isn't anything like a Hitchcock movie or Psycho especially, but I don't know, it's just an homage. I'm sure they only picked Jamie Lee Curtis because of the Janet Leigh connection, but she is fucking good in this series. Not in 2, but H2O, she's really good in H2O. But she's good in this movie too. For what she has, I mean, it's not a huge role, but she's great for this role as just this, this likable teenage girl, this all-American girl that you can just get behind. There's nothing offensive about her. You're just like, yeah, she looks nice, and she acts nice, and she's just someone you can get behind. And then she's a little more complicated in H2O, and it's nice. This song doesn't exist, and I thought it was a real song, just based on the way she sang it and just the lyrics. I thought it was a real song, but it's not. Apparently, Jamie Lee Curtis made it up. So, honestly, man, that would be a cool Easter egg if they turned this into a real song and put it in the background of a scene. Oh my god. Honestly, I don't know if you can tell, but I would love to be involved in a Halloween movie. Honestly, I would enjoy, if not to write or anything, I would just like to be able to say, why don't you put this in? Because that's kind of cute. The fans will appreciate it. And even if it's a terrible movie, people will be like, that part was cool, and that part was cool. The movie sucked, but whatever. God. That dude with a mustache becomes a huge character in Halloween 5 and 6. And it's so fucking random. Like, let's just get this random background character and make him an integral part of this saga. It's fucking crazy. His name is Dr. Wynn, and well, I guess he's the ultimate villain in this series, at least if you go by the Thorn trilogy. Like, yeah, I think he is the ultimate villain. He's basically the Emperor Palpatine of this series, apparently. And that's a spoiler. I'm sorry, but honestly, 5 and 6, they're 6 has its fans. I know that. I know that really well, that 6 has a lot of fans. And 6 is a guilty pleasure kind of movie for me, because, I put it in, I watch it, it's got fucking Paul Rudd as just this wacky character, that very Dr. Loomis-like character, and it's just, it's fucking fun to watch, but it's not a super great movie. A lot of parts don't make sense, and it's not a satisfying conclusion to the franchise. And a lot of that has to do with just the production problems and stuff. But I don't know. I don't know if you could really even make it work at the end of the day, because they didn't know what they were getting into when they made 6. They were just like, we established this thing in 5. We gotta do something with it. We gotta have this storyline all of a sudden, which it's pretty terrible, but whatever. It's only natural to have some bad kids in a Halloween movie. 4 had some bad kids. Really bad kids, actually. They were pretty over-the-top bad, I might add. 5... actually, 5 didn't have any bad kids. There were no kids that were shown to be antagonistic. 6... no bad kids. Okay, H2O, no kids at all. Resurrection, also no kids. Well, I guess there was a briefly shown kid. Well, there's always kids in a Halloween movie, I think. Pretty much. Yeah. Always kids, but they only occasionally have a big role. And they should have a bigger role, because, it puts more, adds to the stakes. And also, trick-or-treating is a big part of Halloween. Should have more kids. Just don't make them annoying. Make them cool, Make them nice, relatable, just... Don't make him fucking Jake Lloyd as Anakin Skywalker. That's all you need to know. One of the best parts of Halloween, the first one, is that it's a lot of the movie is just the methodology of Michael Myers. Him just sort of, you see him stalking people, you see him just going through, you just see him going through his whole, like, he goes from his house, then he finds this girl, and this kid, follows the kid around, and eventually goes to the girl, and he just gets an idea of where they are, where they're going. Like, you see him do this, you see him learning stuff, you see him just sort of slowly stalking people, and it's really fucking cool. They don't do that in all the Halloween movies, which, it's a damn shame. 2, they kind of did it. Kind of. At the end of the day, in 2, he just shows up. But he was learning where Laurie was, and that's pretty much it. The rest of the movie is just him chasing her. Not a whole lot of methodology to that, but, well, I guess he was also sort of like crippling the whole hospital so no one can really stop him. So yeah, there's a bit of methodology there. And like part of his methodology in this movie is he gets a jumpsuit and he gets a mask. And you don't see any of that on screen, but they establish it, they show it off camera, because you don't really want to see him... Yeah, you don't really want to see him getting changed, really. You don't want to see that. But you do see a naked guy in the field. I never really knew if Dr. Loomis saw the dude, because I don't know, I think you'd want to do a little more thorough investigating, because honestly, if Dr. Loomis did a lot more investigating... Yeah, he doesn't know about the guy. If he did more investigating, then he would have a solid case for the sheriff. He'd be like, Sheriff, there's a dead body. Come on. Of course he's on his way here. Gonna get some more water. And then I'm gonna talk more about the methodology of Michael and how the other series didn't do it well. That's some good water. You gotta hydrate yourself when you're constantly talking for a commentary. I'm gonna get another sip of water, honestly. None of this is really important. It's just sort of letting you get to know Laurie and her friends. Deborah Hill handled a lot of this stuff, and she did a pretty damn good job. They're memorable. Like, you have... Because Laurie's the neutral character. She's the default. Then you have 2 extremes. You have sort of the bubbly, sort of like, I'm gonna have sex with everyone kind of thing. Then you have the Daria-like character who's just like sort of deadpan and sarcastic and stuff like that. And you have those 2 extremes, and like, they're very distinct. They're not super amazing 4-dimensional, 3-dimensional, or whatever characters, but they're also not 1-dimensional, and they're very distinct from each other. And that's pretty fucking good. That's very important. You don't want 2 characters that are very alike. At the end of the day, you want your characters to be very different from each other in a horror movie, because, I don't know, it's sort of boring otherwise. But yeah, more of his methodology. Again, 2 did it kind of. 4 did it a whole lot, where he went to town on 4, literally. He, like, got rid of the phone lines, the power lines or whatever. He got rid of the power in the town. Like, he really did a number on Haddonfield. And then 5 slips up. What happens in 5 is that basically he just shows up places. Well, he kind of has a bit of methodology, admittedly. Kind of. He masquerades as another guy named Michael, wears that guy's Halloween mask, and just pretends to be him. But that's pretty much it. Most of the movie, if I recall correctly, it was just him sort of just showing up places to kill people. You don't see a whole lot of his methodology. And then in 6, it's also like that. Showing up places and chasing people. You don't see him, whatever. Same thing in H2O. Showing up. Eventually showing up and, chasing people. Resurrection. People show up to him. And he, chases people. You know, the remake has the methodology again, mostly because the second half of the movie is Michael going after the second half of the movie is almost an exact carbon copy of this first half, except Michael is not in a car. But, what was it like in the Halloween 2, did he have a much of a... No, yeah, he showed up eventually. He was just sort of hanging out outside of town until eventually he had to show up. But I think he had slight methodology, I don't know. He did have a methodology in the prequel section of the first remake, where he followed that one kid. He seemed to have, like, kind of a plan. And, yeah, he also tied people up. Honestly, it's not the kind of methodology I want to see. It seems like a standard horror villain methodology. I want to see some... You know, I'm just not so into that interpretation. That sort of down-to-earth, gritty interpretation. You know, I like it where it's just... He's human, but he does a good job hiding the fact that he is human. He gets up, and he keeps walking even after he's been shot so many times. He does a very good job. If you shot him in the head, yeah, he's dead. But otherwise, he's gonna keep going and going and going. He's not gonna be fazed by anything. He's gonna keep chasing you. He's gonna keep stalking you. That's something the series really needed to work with more. Just like the fear of like constant... Well, H2O kind of did that, but it was so far along. Honestly, Halloween 2 needed to be... It was a huge mistake to me doing... Because on one hand, it's cool that it takes place right after this movie. Just a few moments after this movie. Oh man, my voice cracked right there. That was cool, but it sort of limited the story, and you could have told H2O's story just right away in the second movie, and just expanded Laurie's character, and just the consequences of just all this bullshit, and just her dealing with the fact that, yeah, this Michael Myers guy is still on the loose, and she's got to carry on with her life. Yeah, basically just do H2O's story right after 1. And just don't start right exactly where the first one left off. Except maybe in, like, an opening sequence. Oh, man, she seemed like... That looked like literal just, like, excitement and happiness in her look. Oh, it's pretty adorable. She's a very likable actress in this movie. And honestly, she seems so different in this movie compared to all of her other movies. Probably because she's an actual teenager here. In Halloween 2, she's so fucking different. And they try to make her look like she was here, but... she has that fucking fake wig. Oh, man. Yeah, that sound always seemed kind of weird, because it seemed like someone was getting stabbed or someone was getting, like, and then it turns into laughter, but it starts out sounding like, oh, stop touching me there. And I'm not saying that in a creepy way. I'm just saying it sounds like that. Oh, God. Why do I have to go to these horrible places? Well, this commentary is better than the first attempt, and the second attempt. Especially the first attempt. I only got 5 minutes through this commentary before realizing that it sucked. I just noticed she has, like, a heart pillow right there. You know, they did a pretty decent job. Then again, like, she doesn't seem to, like... Yeah, she's a very bookish type. She doesn't have any posters of, like, recent, like, like, heartthrobs or anything. She has, like, a poster of, like, some old book guy. That's all I can really describe it as. It's a guy, I don't know, James Ensor. I don't know. Enzor. I don't know any of this. She also has a Raggedy Ann, which... a little girlishness, you know, and she's got a globe. Yeah, you know, and I think she also has a typewriter. So yeah, she's a nerd of the 70s, a nerd girl of the 70s. And nerd girls back then, they're not like now where they basically just, they were smart, but they didn't have like Star Wars or any like nerdy D&D type things. Now there's a lot of things that girls can like that are nerdy. We got anime. We got a lot of girl anime, like, you know, Cardcaptor, Change the World. But back then, if you were a nerdy girl, you pretty much just were smart, and you read some books, some big books, but you didn't have a whole lot aimed at you. I guess Laurie plays tennis. You know, little details you can read from just looking at the background. But in the remake, to get across that Laurie was a nerd, I guess they just put glasses on her, but she didn't. She acted pretty much the same as all of her friends, so yeah, that's sort of the big problem where she was not distinct from any of her friends. All of her friends and her seem to be the same way, but whatever. I'm not going to talk about the remake. I'm sorry, but something to talk about. It looked like there was some graffiti, like there's some spray paint stuff on the concrete, whatever. I guess it's sort of it's not really a fucking wall, like, but whatever. I'm talking about, like, the fucking architecture of this neighborhood. Oh my god. And yeah, I don't know, like, I've been to California. When I went to California, well, it was because of the drought. There's no fucking clouds in the sky when you go to California. It's clear. It rained once, but it was just sprinkling. So it's very strange, because this movie was shot in California, just so you know. So it's very weird seeing a California day that was cloudy. That's fucking crazy to me. Man. Man. I'm starting to get dehydrated. It doesn't help that I have the air conditioning off, so you don't hear the air conditioning in the background. So I'm kind of sweating here, trying to drink as much water as possible. I have 2 glasses of water, so I don't have to get up. Also, I have this. I also have a fucking water bottle, so I can refill the water glasses. Oh shit! Oh crud! I think I just messed something up. Okay, I think I'm okay now. Okay, I like messed with the microphone. I moved it slightly. Hopefully that doesn't pick up or anything. I should really be talking about the movie, but I'm not for some reason. This scene is pretty fucking good because it just adds to the mythology of what Michael is. Basically, the idea behind Michael, the ultimate fucking concept behind Michael, is that he is a person, a normal person with a normal background, who has no reason to kill someone. He was just a kid, but he is drawn towards murder for no apparent reason. So it's a scary idea because, you know your family, you know your friends, you know all these people, but who knows? Who knows how the mind really works? Maybe one day something sort of changes in their mind and they just decide, I'm gonna kill you, specifically. And I'm not gonna stop coming after you until you are dead, and there's no reason for it. And I'm not gonna fucking talk to you anymore. I'm just gonna become this thing that only has one fucking goal, mission, or whatever. Again, he's still chasing her. We'll just follow. Oh, man. Okay, I just burped. Oh, God. Not a good thing to happen, but it happens. You can't help it. And again, she's not a goody two-shoes. She's fucking smoking the reefer. Unless it's like a handmade cigarette, but I'm pretty sure it's marijuana. She's like smoking it, and, you know, she's not quite enjoying it, but she's still partaking. And, yeah, if you wanted to just make her a simple goody two-shoes, she'd be like, no thanks, I don't want it. But she does it. She smokes some marijuana. I mean, it's not a horrible thing, of course. It's just kind of a thing you don't expect from a nerdy person at all. And yeah, honestly, this was before there were quote-unquote rules to a horror movie. Laurie is just the way she is because it's just you get behind her right away without having to spend a whole lot of time with her and all that stuff. It's just, she's a nice girl. That's all you need. You don't need to know if she has had sex at all. You don't need to know any of that fucking shit. She's just a nice girl. And she did what she was supposed to do. And that's pretty much it. She probably was a virgin, but that didn't have anything. doesn't fucking have anything to do with anything. It's stupid how we've gotten to that point where even like movies today, they rarely change things up where it's like, well, that's not true. I don't know what I'm talking, but mostly it's just the perception people have where it's like, oh yeah, if you want to survive a horror movie, you can't have sex, you can't do drugs, you can't drink. And yeah, that's pretty much it, I guess. That's pretty much all the rules there are. Oh my gosh. But they're rules, nonetheless, that people insist upon. And it's hackneyed jokes. I'm pretty sure I'm guilty of those hackneyed jokes. Of course, I'm guilty of those fucking hackneyed jokes. You know, I make some hackneyed jokes. But, yeah, I don't like to dwell on the cliched stuff, which is why I didn't fucking review this movie, because there's not a whole lot to make fun of, and that's part of the point. Well, not make fun of, just like riff on, just like sort of, just have fun with, sort of poke fun at. There's not a whole lot there unless you're being an asshole, where you're just like, this movie's so shitty, look at this part. Like, no, that's not how I roll. So I didn't review this movie. Someone else reviewed it. Honestly, it's the guy who created me. He created the universe I exist in. And he just sort of interprets the universe. He sees my universe, and he just lets you get to see it. It's very trippy, I know, but he created me. And I have to learn to deal with that. And to learn that I was created by just some random guy. Ugh, that's such a horrible thing to think about. But it's what I have to deal with. It's what I have to deal with. My lot in life. But I am a Wolfulite. I am from some parts unknown. My backstory probably changes from time to time. Who cares? It's like the Joker. You want to have a bunch of different backstories because it's fun. You don't want to get stuck with just one. You want a whole bunch. And, that's kind of the way Michael Myers has been sometimes. Sometimes he's just a guy who wants to kill. And sometimes he's a guy... Well, a lot of the time, he's a guy who just wants to go after his relatives, primarily. Which is what he did in Halloween 2 forward. But, I'm not so into that, because it's sort of like... it sets in stone what his whole thing is. But at the same time, I'm going to get a drink of water. Oh, man. You're hearing horrible sounds, no doubt. I'm sorry. But the thing that's kind of cool with Michael Myers going after his family is that kind of makes sense. If you were a robot man that didn't want anybody to know that you were human, if you wanted to be the boogeyman, you would get rid of your family, because that's evidence that you are a person and that you have a family and a backstory and all that stuff. You want to kill your family, get them out of the way, so you can become the boogeyman to people. Where nothing's tying you down. You are just the boogeyman of legend. And yeah, you don't really see a lot of authority figures that actually are involved with the... Like, the teenagers are off on their own. The kids are off with the teenagers. And the parents are off doing whatever. I don't know what... That's something I'm wondering about. Like, what do middle-aged people do on Halloween? And they're not in costume or anything. Like, where are they going? Are they going out to dinner? Are they really going out to dinner on Halloween? Like, what are all these parents and adults doing? Like, the neighborhood is empty, and the few adults that are in the neighborhood, they don't even want to be bothered with Halloween. They want to just be left alone. Don't bother me with your nonsense. Oh, man. Yeah, Michael kills a dog to eat it. And for some reason, the sheriff is like, it was probably a skunk. I don't know. Does Haddonfield have a lot of skunks? And my image of a skunk is Pepe Le Pew. It's hard for me imagining a skunk like killing stuff. I guess they spray it and the dog dies. I don't know. But do skunks eat dogs or something? I don't know. I don't. It seemed like a weird thing to say, but whatever. John Carpenter sometimes has his characters. I don't know if I'm being grammatical or whatever. Sometimes John Carpenter has characters say weird stuff, and it's charming. It really is charming, because sometimes a character will say stuff that just comes out of nowhere, and you're just like, whoa. Which is what Dr. Loomis was in this movie. Sometimes he'd say shit that was just weird. That was just sometimes, but eventually he became just that entirely, where he was just this fucking crazy dude. Just this fucking crazy dude that you don't want around your kids, because he will sell your kids out if it means getting his man, Michael Myers. He will fucking just sell you out and your kids just to destroy this evil. He's not super responsible, but he's ultimately responsible for ending everything. Hopefully. Oh man, he never got that chance, really. Never did. He kind of did. Well, he kind of did in 2. But, that was retconned in 4. Honestly, I like 4 better than 2. You know, some people are like that. Some people like 4. Some people don't like 4. I like 4. I like 4 a lot. It's my favorite sequel. It feels the most like Halloween 1. And a continuation. And, yeah, it's a pretty damn good movie. It's good on its own. Of course, not super good on its own, but it's pretty good on its own. And it does a whole lot of new stuff. 2, yeah, it does new stuff, but I don't know. To me, the magic of Halloween is the neighborhood, is relatability. And some people want to see Michael go to all kinds of different places, but to me, that's not the magic of seeing Michael Myers do his thing. That's not it. It's see him coming to you, coming to your house. And most people, you know, they don't live in houses like this, admittedly. But, well, the idea is that this is a place that you just think about and you're safe. You're safe in these suburban areas, but maybe you're not. Maybe there's a guy. Actually, oh man, in this scene, she's talking about the comic books that Tommy has. This is actually done in the one of the Halloween comics that it was the I think it was the 30th, 35th, 40th anniversary. I don't know the anniversary. Yeah, actually, I think it was the 30th anniversary comic that they did, and they had a little short about Tarantula Man, which is a comic that Tommy is mentioned having, and it's shown that Tommy actually works on a new version of Tarantula Man. He's like a comic book artist in the future, and Tarantula Man is kind of like he's basically sort of he's sort of like Michael Myers. There's a word I could be using, a very smart word, but I'm not using that word because I it can't come to mind right now. But Tarantula Man is kind of like Michael Myers, basically. I could be using a good word, but I'm not. Oh well. Ben Tramer is probably one of the best characters in the Halloween series. In this first movie, you just hear about him, and, you know, you don't have a whole lot to go on. But Laurie seems to be interested in him, and he seems to be interested in Laurie. You never get to see him, though. But in 2, he returns from not being seen, but you get to see him, but you don't actually get to see him, because he's dressed almost exactly like Michael Myers, coincidentally. Oh my, honestly, if you're, because I like Halloween 2, I don't hate it, but it's hard to defend Halloween 2 as a sequel to me for a lot of things, especially the fucking plot point where Ben Tramer is dressed like Michael Myers coincidentally and gets killed and just sort of takes up Dr. Loomis's time just to explain what Dr. Loomis is up to. John Carpenter, you gotta remember, John Carpenter did not want to do Halloween 2. He didn't want to return to it. And I like the Halloween series. I like some of the sequels. I enjoy a lot of the sequels. But it's understandable if a guy does not want to return to something and just give it to someone else. Because, and we get to see some naked ladies. And, I don't know if Michael gets any thrill out of that. But anyway, it's hard to fucking defend Halloween 2 with the fucking Ben Schramer plot point, for example. And I think an acorn hit the roof of my place, so, the Wolfula. So if you heard that. I'm in, like, a sort of the fucking... It's sort of like a side room. I have a roof directly above me. I don't have a second floor. There's a whole lot of the Wolfula you don't get to see just from that exterior shot that you see in all my fucking reviews, so... Maybe someday you'll get to see more of the Wolfula. But, not here, because this is a commentary, and you can't see anything. Yeah, he kills dogs like a motherfucker. He kills a second dog. And who knows, maybe he eats this dog too. Wouldn't put it past him. The funny thing about this is, John Carpenter ended up going on to direct a remake of this movie that's being shown here. The Thing from Another World. Is that what it's called? Okay, I want to make sure. It's... Because his remake is just called The Thing. They simplified it. And they even kept the fucking, like, logo pretty much the same. Like, it is a really fucking good logo. For all intents and purposes, I'm just going to call it The Thing. And he ended up remaking this. And I think The Thing is probably John Carpenter's... I think it's technically his best movie. Halloween is his most iconic movie. It's his most influential movie. But The Thing... It's his best movie to me. I'd say... I don't know. It's hard to say, because he has Escape from L.A., he has They Live, he has The Thing, he has a lot of good movies. He had movies before Halloween, by the way. He was a director long before this movie. This movie didn't really start his career, but it got him further along. It got him to a point where he directed The Fog, which... not a high point of his career. It's an enjoyable horror movie, The Fog, but it's not it wasn't a satisfying horror movie for me. It just didn't hit the right beats, but it was an enjoyable movie. I didn't hate it. I liked it. Just, he could have done a lot better. I know it sounds really horrible to say something like that when I'm just commenting on his movies, but whatever. I mean, apparently The Fog was good enough to get remade, which it shows that a movie has some worth to it if it gets remade. The Fog remake was probably not good. It starred Tom Welling from Smallville, so I don't know. But, it got remade, so there's that. And you only get small glimpses of Michael in this movie up to a certain point. And you just sort of like... Maybe you don't even totally realize that he's wearing a mask, and he's just this sort of strange, eerie figure. And now you become super familiar with the way he looks, but whatever. But as I was saying about John Carpenter, yeah, he had a career before this movie, but I think this was the first movie where he was approached to make the movie, because he didn't come up with the idea of this movie. He was basically just told by the producers, make us a horror movie that's about babysitters, that takes place on Halloween. It's going to be called Halloween, and we think it's going to be low budget, and it's guaranteed to make its money back. It's probably not going to be a hit, but it's going to make its money back, and that's all that matters. And he was probably like, okay, I'll do it. But I'm not gonna phone it in. I'm gonna go to town with this fucking movie. And he did. But... And honestly, it had to have been really fucking cool, though, to be this probably starving filmmaker who, I think he made one hit before this, which was Assault on Precinct I always get fucked. I always fuck up with thinking of the was it Precinct 13? It was Precinct. I always fuck up trying to remember the fucking number. But he did that Precinct movie before this, and I think it was a hit. And it also convinced Donald Pleasance to come on board with this movie, but Donald Pleasance apparently wasn't so into it at first. But eventually he embraced it. He did all those sequels, and he's an old man who probably has a lot of money. Honestly, I only know Donald Pleasance from this movie. Again, I mentioned James Bond. I know him from that too, but I don't know him that well from that. And yeah, that's pretty much the primary thing I've seen him in is Halloween and its sequels. And I've seen him in a couple of other things, some B movies in the '80s, which were on Mystery Science Theater. I think he was featured in a couple of episodes of Mystery Science Theater. So yeah, he's been in some bad movies. But I don't think he needed to be in any bad movies. I don't think he needed to be in any Halloween sequels, but I think he just wanted to come back. He just wanted to constantly be acting. And it wasn't so much about the money. It was just about, I want to just try out all these different roles, all these experiences, because I'm pretty far in my acting career, and I want to get some shit done. I don't want to just stop. And I'm not going to have the same accessibility, like I'm not going to get the same roles as I got before, but I'm going to take what I can get because I want to keep acting, and you got to respect that. Jeez, of course. And he was good till the end. He was good in Halloween 6. All the way to 6 he was good. But anyway, I was saying before, it had to been cool being John Carpenter and being offered this movie. Up to this point, you were probably starving as a director and a writer, and then you're basically told, yeah, we're going to pay you to make this movie. We're not going to pay you a whole lot, but we want you to make a movie. And early on, it must have been like that for a while. And eventually, I guess, I don't know what exactly happened with John Carpenter falling out of favor, but I'd assume, Again, I'm mostly just familiar with John Carpenter's really good movies. I haven't seen a lot of his bad movies, but I'm aware that he has, later on in his career, he has had some bad movies. But, I've heard some conflicting things about his lesser movies. He did that, I think it was, Memoirs of an Invisible Man starring Chevy Chase. And I've heard from some sources that it's a bad movie. I've heard from some sources that it's a good movie. So, I don't know. I think I might want to check that one out because, it could be interesting. I heard it was sort of mixed as far as, is it a comedy or is it a fucking drama? Or I don't know. I think I saw a clip of it, but whatever. You never really see Michael Myers doing stuff like he did just then. Just so you know, we're in sync, I think, but I'm reacting to it late. But he was just sort of like crouched down, and then he just sort of pops up. You don't see him do that stuff like that. He's usually where he wants to be, where he needs to be, in the shadows, where no one could possibly see him, and where crouching is not necessary. Because, you don't want to see him just popping up like that. You want to see him like he knows where he needs to be and where he shouldn't be. But, this movie, they were just like, well, we're going to do what we need to do, whatever. Michael Myers was not a legend at this point, so there wasn't a certain way you needed to portray him at this point. He was just a guy in a mask. That happened to be an interesting concept that took off. Oh, man. Oh, man, I drank some water. It's sort of like Darth Vader, how, in the first movie, he's just sort of a henchman. And, they introduce the idea that Darth Vader is Luke's father, and then he changes entirely because of the expansion of the story. I don't know if this Paul song is an actual song that she's singing, It could be another made-up song, which could be used as an Easter egg. Oh, man, but probably not. It's probably just a song that the character is just making up, because I think it's just her saying... Yeah, it's her just improvising the song as she goes along, so... It would be a little too obvious, like... This song about an improvised... Like, just a girl going around her house talking about a guy named Paul. It's pretty repetitive, actually. Okay, I have like the subtitles on for this, and instead of like musical notes for the song, it has hashtags. That's kind of weird. Seems like a mistake for the subtitles. Yeah, well, with the family angle, it doesn't really it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense in retrospect unless you look at it from the point of view that Michael is doing a ritualistic thing where he's killing a certain amount of people and then eventually he's going to cap it off with his sister. Yeah, well, man, his mask looks really good in that shot. Oh my gosh. And again, you don't get a super clear shot, you just see it through the fog. But, you know, here's something weird about the way I think about movies sometimes that are a certain age. You know, I look at something like, okay, so I look at something like a comedy that had a huge budget, like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and I compare it to a low-budget 80s horror movie that came out around the same time, and I feel like the low-budget 80s horror movie came out a lot longer than something like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, even though that's not true. They would have come out at the same time. It's just, with a low budget, it sort of makes things seem a little like it took place in a longer time ago or whatever, compared to something like with a huge budget and actors you actually recognize. Where that's another thing where you don't recognize a lot of the actors. The actors didn't go on to a lot of things in Halloween, so you're like, it came out so long ago that the actors are just irrelevant now. But when that's not really the case, because again, I have Planes, Trains, and Automobiles on my mind because it's so close to Thanksgiving right now. So I'm thinking about that movie, but yeah, with that, you have Steve Carell, Kevin Bacon in a cameo appearance. Of course, you have John Candy, the legendary John Candy. You have all these fucking big actors. You have that one chick at like the rental car desk, and you remember all these people. But with this movie, you just have Jamie Lee Curtis and kind of Donald Pleasance, but not really Donald Pleasance, because he didn't do a whole lot after this that you would be like, oh yeah, I remember that guy from that fucking other movie. No, you pretty much just remember him from Halloween and 007, I think. Maybe from other stuff, but whatever. But yeah, you just have Jamie Lee Curtis. But even then, Jamie Lee Curtis is so different from how she is later on in her career, where you're just like, it's honestly a great thing because you can just shut your brain off. You can immerse yourself, which is a very pretentious word, especially with film viewing, but yeah, you can totally just immerse yourself. It's like it's all happening in front of you because you don't know any of these fucking people, and you can just say that they're the people that they're playing instead of, and it's also kind of depressing because at the same time you have actors that didn't really have careers after this, but at the end of the day, it's great for the art, I guess. Not so great for the individual people, but great for the art. And, you know, the people behind the scenes went on to do a lot of great stuff after this. Not necessarily the people in front of the camera, but the people behind the scenes went on to do a lot of stuff. I think the cinematographer for this went on to do the Back to the Future trilogy, for example, but went on to do a whole lot of other fucking cool shit. John Carpenter had a career making a whole bunch of great movies. Deborah Hill, the co-writer of this movie and also the producer, she went on to produce a ton of fucking movies after this. She became a big producer. So a lot of people did some fucking good stuff after this. But not the people in front of the camera so much. Of course, Donald Pleasant's been in a lot of movies. You know, just not huge movies outside of Halloween sequels. Apparently the sheriff is... I mean, he was in The Fog, but apparently the sheriff is a big guy, a big actor or whatever, I guess. But I don't know, from anything else. I feel like he probably did a lot of TV work. I don't know. I get this vibe where he probably was in an episode of MASH. I get a MASH vibe from the Sheriff Hackett, where I feel like he probably would have been perfect for an episode of MASH. I would be surprised if he did not have a guest appearance in an episode of MASH. He probably did. I'm like, you hear this sound? It's the sound of Halloween candy wrapper. It's specifically, it's a Snicker bar, I think. Yeah, fun size Snicker. I always, I don't hate Snickers, but I don't like candy that has peanuts in it. I don't hate peanuts, but I just don't like candy with peanuts. Basically, that's it. That's all there is. I'm sure I would enjoy Snickers more if there was no peanuts, but I think that's part of the charm for a lot of people. So I would never want peanut-less Snickers because I'd be letting down a whole lot of other people. That guy with the glasses looks kind of like Kevin Bacon, I think. Yeah, kind of. You don't really get a good shot of that guy with the glasses. He's just sort of there to get fucking what's her name to a certain place. Fuck. I wish I could remember names, but the promiscuous character, to get her to a certain place. Because, this movie was kind of an exploitation movie, sort of. Yeah, kind of. So you had to have certain things like, brief female nudity. And, like, a lot of... You go back at Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they could have gone full exploitation with nudity. There's no nudity in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And there's also not a whole lot of blood and gore in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Same thing with this movie. Honestly, besides possibly the breasts shown in this movie, this probably could have been a PG-13. Really, the nudity is just holding us back from a larger audience now because it's very tame by today's standards. There's not a whole lot of swearing, cursing, mind you, or whatever. And you don't see a lot of blood. You don't see, honestly, the fucking Avengers are more violent than Halloween, if I'm being completely honest here. Avengers 2 is a far more violent movie than this. Man of Steel, far more violent. But at the same time, it's not, that stuff isn't scary. There's not a scariness attached to it, which might bump up the rating. It's honestly a shame, though, you don't see a lot of PG-13 horror movies. Most horror movies are R-rated. That's the way it is. Don't see those PG-13 movies. Sometimes there are PG-13 horror movies, but usually they're really fucking lame, though. Usually they're PG-13 for a reason, because they're kind of lame. But, I don't know, there's probably some recent PG-13 horror movies that were pretty okay, I don't know. Again, I have a... Okay, I don't know if you can hear that, but there's like a cat talking. I think Okay, I'm gonna be right back. There's a cat outside that I need to let in. It's a black cat. I'll just let you enjoy this. I'll try to talk throughout this, but I'm gonna be right back. Get in here. Come on. Okay. All right. Yeah, get in. Get in the fucking Wolfula. I'll eat you later, piece of shit. Ugh. All right. Okay, I'm back from that brief, whatever the fuck it was. I don't know how you can describe it. Just me getting a cat in this fucking house. Ah, man. It's great when the cats come to me, because I don't have to go out of my way to cook them They just come to me. Ah, man. I sort of... Yeah, okay, well... Maybe it was Michael calling them? Well, probably not. I don't know. No, it was probably just the actual people owning the house calling to make sure that, for example, that nobody's fucking in their bed. Like, that's such a horrible thing. But yeah, the remake made this worse because they break into an abandoned house for some reason to have sex, which you can see a little nipple right there. Whoa. Oh boy. But yeah, it's a pretty shitty thing to do. To go into an abandoned house or someone's house. Yeah, it's worse to go in someone's house in a house that's actually occupied and having sex in a stranger's bed. That's not a cool thing to do. If you ever find yourself in that position, don't do it. Because, well, for one thing, stranger's bed, you're having sex in a stranger's bed. Who knows? Maybe these fucking people are freaks and you could catch any disease or whatever. Don't do it because of that, but also just don't do it because it's not a cool thing to do. And you'll probably give them diseases or whatever. I don't know. Not a huge chance of it, but there is a chance. So, don't do it. I never noticed that cat picture before. Man, that's such a... it's probably got to be not a cool thing. Like, the man of the house is like, I'm not so into having this cat picture up, but, the wife, the missus, was like, I like cats, I want this picture up. And they put the picture up. And that's the whole backstory of that cat picture. I'm sure when the guys, the fellas, come over, the dad takes that picture down so they don't fucking, make the jokes, make the little cracks at him. But whatever. Here it is. Here's probably the best. I think it's the best kill in the movie. I think it's the most. I mean, it's something I don't think was done before. Maybe it was, but it just was. It's just an interesting thing. It's staged pretty well. Like, they do a good job convincing you that this guy is actually lifting this guy up, even though he probably isn't. Obviously, he isn't, because I don't think Nick Castle had extreme strength. But it establishes that this guy is pretty fucking strong. Like, amazingly strong. And he also has sort of a curiosity. He's like a thinking man's killer. He's not he's sort of like, so, because he hasn't killed that many people, so he's just like, so, this is what it's like. Because he didn't have a whole lot of time when he first killed his sister. He just sort of did it and got out of there. Maybe who knows? Like, actually, that's something to think about. Maybe Michael's plan originally, before his parents showed up, maybe Michael's plan originally wasn't to end up in the asylum. Instead, he probably was going to run away and just, eventually come back or something, or just continue killing random people. Then his parents came, and I don't know. I think, he probably. I'm very distracted by the nudity. You can't really see it now, but they showed it. You saw it very briefly. Yeah, they don't really linger on it, which that's the classy thing to do. You show the nipples. But you don't show, the actress in frame, topless, doing a scene. It'd be a little too distracting, You want to see some boobies and get out of there, I guess. And a lot of horror movies really do linger on the nudity. And some people really want nudity in horror movies, I don't necessarily, it's sort of, it can be a little tacky when it's natural like this, where it's like a girl messing with her boyfriend, or at least who she thinks to be her boyfriend, it works. But when it's just like in like the Friday the 13th reboot, where it's like a girl water skiing topless, where you just like, pornography exists, you know, do we really need this kind of thing all the time just for no reason? Can't we just because if you look back at, that's sort of the horrible thing, is that you have these stereotypes of horror movie series. When you look back at the early Friday the 13th movies, they're nothing like what you imagine them to be. There is tons of over-the-top gore and violence, though, but they don't fit into the... Because if you look at Friday the 13th Part 2, your main character is an older woman, not an old woman, but she isn't a teenager or anything. She's in her 20s. She's like at a bar drinking. Like, she's a very worldly character. You know, she's pretty hard. She's a lot more hard-edged than a lot of the other characters. And you also don't see a lot of nudity in the early Friday the 13th movies. It's very brief. It's there, but it's not exploitative. It's not like a fucking scene where it's just for dudes to get their rocks off later on or something, or like extended fucking humorous sex scenes or whatever. You know, make a Friday the 13th movie with at least a little bit of class. They didn't linger on nudity and shit like that. They had it, and sometimes they didn't even have it at all, or sometimes it was so brief where it might as well have not been there. Yeah, that's actually a weird thing, where sometimes you'll have a horror movie and they'll have nudity, but it'll only be for 1 second. You had this actress get nude and you don't even have it for at least 5 seconds? Oh man, but whatever. Yeah, but my whole thing is that we're past the point where, you know, we need this, because pornography is readily available if you want to see a woman naked. Don't need to do it in movies for no reason anymore. Make it natural when you want nudity. I'm not saying you shouldn't have nudity at all, because, you know, especially in a have nudity in a Friday the 13th movie, but don't overdo it. You know, make it like the original movies, you know? We're actually almost done with the movie. Oh, holy shit. I did pretty okay with this commentary. I talked, and I didn't really... my second attempt, I got halfway through this fucking movie, and I spent a lot of that time apologizing for my commentary. I'm doing pretty damn well. And right now I'm congratulating myself, but, you know, it's something to talk about. How great I am. Oh, ha, ha. And this is the turning point. This is... I guess this is what you'd call the third act. It's a very short third act compared to the first. Yeah, compared to the first and second act. I don't know if this can really be categorized in act form, but you know, this is the final act. This is the part where Laurie, and I'm narrating this part, which is fucking retarded to do. But this is the part where Laurie actually finally finally is aware of what's going on. She's had little glimpses, little ideas of what's going on, but this is where it's explicitly made clear that, yes, there has been a guy chasing her or stalking her for this whole movie, and yeah, he is going to kill her. And the whole movie, for most of the movie, well, yeah, for the second half of the movie, most of it, she sort of forgets about Michael entirely. Even during that suspicious part where her friend gets killed, she's just like, quit fucking messing with me, you fucking prick. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of being treated like shit tonight by you users. Yeah, her friends aren't the best. They kind of use her. They kind of take advantage of her. But, you know, that's actually what friends kind of are sometimes, most of the time. But then it pays off, because then you have a point in time where your friends really, really do something great for you. And if they don't, well, I guess then they're not your friends at all, and you should probably tell them to just fucking stop messing with you. Ah, man. lots of different pumpkins. Lots of different, well, not well, of course, different pumpkins. Different jack-o'-lanterns. You see a lot of, they're all basically the standard face. They're the standard face with, like, the sort of sharp teeth kind of thing. With the standard, fucking triangle eyes, triangle nose. You know, the standard geometric face. But they all look really good. Whoever did, I actually wonder, maybe they had a guy whose only job in this movie was making the jack-o'-lanterns. That would be fucking kind of funny. I'm the jack-o'-lantern guy. I'm the guy you go to when you want really good jack-o'-lanterns for your movie. I don't get a lot of work, but I like my work when I get it. I'm very passionate about jack-o'-lanterns, and I don't have a lot of money to do this, but trust me, you want me for your fucking Halloween movie, because you're gonna get some pretty good jack-o'-lanterns. They're not gonna be the best jack-o'-lanterns you've ever seen, but they're gonna do their job. God. This was back before Halloween was a big thing. And I'm talking about the holiday. We still weren't at the point where we had a huge horror boom, so, there were Halloween costumes, but they were all shitty most of the time. Of course, there were exceptions. There were some pretty decent masks, like Michael Myers' mask. Michael Myers' mask is famously a William Shatner mask, which has been painted white. And it was only one of the options. Well, it was one of the two options I know about. They were either going to go with the William Shatner mask, and I don't know if you can hear that. Like my headphones are sort of bouncing against the microphone. I hope you don't hear that because I'm shaking my head around a whole lot. Hope you don't hear that. That would suck if you heard like an annoying noise in the background. But anyway, they had the William Shatner mask, and they had another clown mask that Michael would wear, and. I think they, well, it could have been two things. Well, for one thing, the Michael Myers mask that they use, really fucking great. You can't go wrong with it. It's the best, it's honestly the best horror mask around. It's not the most memorable or iconic for some people, because a whole lot more people know about Jason Voorhees than Michael, but, because honestly, you're probably gonna know, like, as far as horror icons are concerned, you're probably gonna know about Jason and Michael, Jason and Freddy long before Michael Myers. Michael Myers is like the third biggest, probably, out of the 70s, 80s slasher icons. Maybe even the fourth, like behind Leatherface, but I'm not gonna get into that. But yeah, they didn't go with the clown mask, but it might have also just been because they wanted some variety. They didn't want to just do clown mask. They wanted to be like, yeah, let's do a different mask. We did the clown mask to start out with in that first scene. Let's move on. Because, with clowns, it's sort of like a childishness. But then, he's reached maturity. He's wearing this defined... Like, there's something to the mask. That's more than just, we're scaring you. Because clowns are scary. I'm not one of those pussies that's, like, inherently afraid of clowns. Who's just, like, they see a clown and they're like, oh my god! Clowns are people. And they look like a certain way. And they think a certain thing is funny. It's not for everyone, but I'm not one of those fucking pussies that's like, clowns are scary. But clowns can be really scary if they're done a certain way. But it's cliched. It's expected scary. This is... If you finally get to see a good, clear view of his mask, and there's something to it. It's sort of like, it's this emotionless face. It's the perfect version of the face underneath the mask. Basically, if we're going to get right down to it, where he doesn't have to try to be emotionless. He doesn't have to hide his emotions at all, because the mask does it for him. And it sort of gives you, and it's still a human face, but it's a face that it's just not recognizable. You can't recognize any emotions, any pity, anything. So when you die, you just see this face that just like, they don't feel one way or another about you. They just killed you for no fucking reason. And that's what you get out of that fucking mask. It's pretty goddamn deep, and it's probably not entirely intentional. Again, I'm bouncing off the head. I gotta keep these headphones steady. But yeah, it probably was not intentional, that mask, but it works, and 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 it gets, and it has a lot of symbolism to it that hasn't really been explored all that much in the series. The mask is just there in all the movies. At no point do any of the characters actually talk. That's actually kind of weird. At no point do any of the characters in the whole Halloween series talk about that mask that Michael wears. It's just the mask he wears. And, it's sort of a weird thing to talk about, but, it's something to talk about. Because, sometimes a character will have some joking reference to Jason's mask in a Friday the 13th movie. And you have that. There's no discussions about what the mask means. Jason's mask doesn't fucking mean anything to me. It's just a mask that hides his deformity, because I guess he's self-conscious about it, or something. Yeah, he's probably deep down still self-conscious about his deformity, so he wears the mask, and it serves that function as just, making him not feel so bad. And maybe he likes hockey, and that's pretty much all there is to it. With Michael's mask, there's a bit more to it. That's the thing. Jason is a cool, badass horror villain, or at least he became that over time. Starting out, he wasn't that cool or badass. He was just sort of a lumbering oaf that was really good at killing people in an over-the-top way, and eventually he became this sort of intense, badass, angry guy. Yeah, the series sort of lost sight of what Jason was to begin with. You forget a lot about Pamela Voorhees. You forget a lot about the family aspect. You forget a lot about all that. You forget that Jason really is a character you can really feel for. He's a deformed kid that was mistreated. He got lost along the way, and his mother went insane because of him. He probably feels guilty for that. His mother was killed because I guess he just never came forward. I guess he was just ashamed. He just didn't want to face a normal life anymore, but I guess he always just felt bad about his mother, and he came back to avenge her and to make sure that nobody goes back to Camp Crystal Lake. And over time, they forgot about that and just had him just kill whoever, and there's just no point to Jason. We've forgotten about his mother. We've forgotten about all that shit, and he's just a guy who pops up and kills people. And you don't really want that, but it's just what it became after a while. Because, people... A lot of the time, people making horror sequels, they do not give a shit about the original version. I'm sure Rob Zombie was a fan of the original Halloween, but he also made it clear that he just did not give a shit about remakes. There's a certain quote going around that he thinks remakes are horrible. That he said before he did the Halloween remake. So, he doesn't think highly of remakes. He probably just did the Halloween remake because it's a stepping stone to bigger, better things, because it's a much more mainstream audience than what he had before. So he's just like, yeah, this is going to be a bigger movie for me, and it's going to lead me to stuff that's going to have much more where I'm going to have a lot more creative control, and I'm going to be able to do whatever I want because I have these two successful movies. It's kind of the same thing with Christopher Nolan. I'm sure he continued with the Batman movies because he knew that once he's done with these 3 Batman movies, he's gonna pretty much be able to do whatever he wants to do. I'm sure he was just, and he did a really great job with those 3 Batman movies. I even like Dark Knight Rises. A lot of people don't like Dark Knight Rises, but I like Dark Knight Rises, especially for Bane. I've grown to love Bane for some reason. I think he's just such a great character, but I don't know why I'm talking about this. I should be talking about this movie. This classic Halloween horror movie. This is the climactic scene where finally Laurie has to face Michael, and honestly, she doesn't have any way to really do that. so she hides in a fucking closet. And, yeah, well, there's apparently, well, Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon suggests that this is the, basically the womb where you're safe, where it's this tight and closed space that you hide in, and you're gonna be safe there no matter what. Nothing can harm you there, and, I don't think that's gonna be true. She still has to defend herself, but it's kind of a force field, sort of. Yeah. Honestly, it's kind of stupid, though. I don't know why she thought it was a good idea. She's not full of the best ideas, honestly. Going into a fucking closet, cornering herself. This guy is not going to be fazed by closet doors. He's not going to walk away. He's not going to know where he went. She probably could have just jumped out the window. It's not that high, I don't think, at least. But, yeah, honestly, you jump out that window, you gotta just... Well, then again, no, she couldn't have jumped out the window. I'm sorry. I don't want to get correction. She fell down the stairs, so she's hurt. So, she's very limited. Yeah, actually, it all makes sense. She's very limited as far as what she can do. So, yeah, she's a sitting duck against Michael, who... Yeah, actually, I don't even know. Maybe, because we all know Michael is this guy who walks around in all the movies, but maybe he was only walking around because he was so sure that he was going to win against Lori because her leg was hurt. So he's like, I can go at my own pace because there's no way she's going to actually be able to get away from me. But, yeah, every Halloween movie after this, he walks. He just walks. He walks and walks and walks. Never runs. Except I think maybe he runs in the Rob Zombie ones. I'm not sure. I don't know those ones as well. Again, I don't like those ones, honestly. But, again, people like them. I'm not going to judge you for liking them. I like a lot of bad stuff, too. Okay, I shouldn't say bad stuff. I like a lot of questionable stuff, and I'm willing to admit it. The Scooby-Doo movie is a guilty pleasure of mine, and that's sort of a horrible thing to say. But I'm gonna deal with that. I'm gonna learn to deal with that in my life, and I got a lot of life because I'm like I think I've been going on. I think I've been doing this for like. Two deca millennias. If you don't know what a deca millennia is, I made it up. Basically, I've just been around since the beginning of time, and before that, in another universe. Oh man, at least I think maybe something traumatic happened. I trick myself in my mind into thinking that I've been around for so long. Maybe I have a much darker backstory that I'm keeping hidden. I think Randall Flagg in the Dark Tower... actually, I don't want to talk about Dark... Yeah, that would be a spoiler. I'm not going to spoil the Dark Tower. But he has a backstory. I'm pouring some water. And the movie's almost over, but I just want some water. I want a supply of water, I will say that I love listening to commentary, and I appreciate you coming this far into this commentary. Because you could be listening to John Carpenter and Jamie Lee Curtis actually talk to you and give you detailed information about this movie, but you're listening to me, a fucking Wolfulite, but whatever. You briefly get to see Michael's face, and he's a normal-looking guy. He's not a scary guy under there, and that's pretty... Again, they went out of their way to make sure he was just your... normal, average, everyday American guy. And not some, not some grisly, over-the-top, scary, psychopathic guy. No, he's 21, and he looks like he probably was, probably a pretty good-looking guy, He probably could have had a pretty successful life if he had not become a murderer. And again, normal guy, went on to become a killer. for no reason that we'll ever know. Because that's what's scary about Michael. You never get to know. And he'll always be out there. He's the boogeyman. And this is probably one of the best endings to a horror film that has ever been done, really. Killer's still out there. You still get the satisfaction of, well, they beat him. But at the same time, you get the, personally, I think it's best to not have a happy ending in a horror movie. Sometimes horror movies have happy endings and sometimes they work, but I honestly like unhappy endings in horror movies. I don't like to come out of a horror movie uplifted. I want to get the feeling that, yeah, a whole bunch of people's lives were ruined, and maybe nobody really won, and the killer's still out there. I like that. I don't want to go into a horror movie. I don't want to be uplifted. Halloween H2O had a pretty happy ending in the long run. Some people's lives were ruined, but at the same time, Michael was stopped. That end of the movie doesn't suggest ever that Michael was anything but stopped, but, of course, there's Halloween Resurrection that ruined that fucking ending. But whatever. Well, I hope you enjoyed this commentary. I kind of enjoyed recording it. The part I didn't enjoy recording was letting a cat in here. I don't enjoy being super sweaty right now because, I sweat because, I got pores. Yeah, I sweat. I might be a Wolfula, but, I fucking sweat sometimes. And I also don't like the amount of water I've had to consume, but luckily, I haven't needed to go to the bathroom for some reason, even though I've gone through 2 glasses of water during this hour and a half. Oh, man. But that's probably just because I'm so fucking sweaty. I'm sweating out all the moisture, which is just, you want to hear lovely things like that during a commentary. Ah, man, I hope you enjoyed this. It went pretty well. It went a whole lot better than before. Music performed by the Bowling Green Philharmonic Orchestra. Well, I guess he Well, yeah, okay. John Carpenter wrote the music, but you still have to have some people in the back, like people putting it together and shit. I don't know anything about music or any of that shit, and I'm sorry about that. Really short credits because this was a short, tight knit horror movie, low budget fucking thing. I never really. Okay. Yeah, the Motion Picture Association of America's logo. I've never thought of it before, but yeah, it's like it's like a globe, a wide globe with a fucking movie. I can't fucking think. It's like a movie film reel. Oh shit! I just like spaced out right there. Yeah, film reel and stuff. Something to think about. Yeah, the movie's over. Hope you enjoyed it. And hey, I know. I know that physical media, it might not be around much longer. The world is going towards digital, but who knows? That might open doors for other certain things. Yeah. Like maybe you go on Netflix and you click on a commentary, and maybe it's a user-submitted commentary too, and you could just listen to it while watching the movie, and you can have all your special features just laid out in front of you, and you, along with the digital content, the digital movie you purchased, you don't have to get the physical media to get the full experience. Whatever. But if you're in charge of the Halloween 1, the releases, the DVDs and stuff, I give my full permission to include this commentary on whatever release you do, free of charge. I give my consent. If you want to include it for whatever fucking reason, go ahead and do it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I know I said that before, but I really hope you enjoyed it, because otherwise I might have just wasted my time. And your time, because you might have listened to this all the way to the end, and just like, why did I fucking listen to that? I hope not. But if you did, I'm sorry. Anyway, bye! And happy Halloween if you're listening to this on Halloween. Probably not, but maybe. I wanted to get this out on Halloween, but things don't always go according to plan, you know? I just don't want to leave you. I keep talking. I love you. Bye. Mwah.